Okay, so just before we get started, obviously because of the size of this beast and the size of the box, etc., I've had to film it on my dining room table, so I do apologise if it's not the best looking sort of background setup for this. But anyway, let's start with the actual unboxing. So on the front of this side of the box, we've got an image of the Strike X Air. Very nice image. Obviously there's a lot of colour, a lot going on with the actual packaging itself. Obviously we've got a lot of specification down here. We're going to come on to that essentially when we actually look at the actual test bench itself, because obviously we've got stickers all over this. Moving on to that side of the box, we have got obviously the fact it's an open case, micro ATX, ATX and eATX, various dimensions. Maximum length available for PCI slots is 330mm. On that side, obviously, again, we've got a couple more different images, just sort of showing all the way around the actual case itself, and obviously with the lid being open. And on this side of the box, we have got information in foreign language. So I think the best thing to do is to get it out, pop it on the table, so we can have a closer look. Okay, so I'm not really quite sure as to where to actually start with this case. As you can see, it's a massive test bench, to be fair. Obviously it's a very striking looking test bench. Obviously we've got a massive fan on the inside here. But I think the thing to start with is basically these, the accessories. So we've got three sort of back plates for your PSU. So, for example, because of the way that they're connected, which I'll show you in a moment, you would effectively screw that cover onto your PSU and then slide it into the case. Not quite sure as to why you have three of them. I'd probably expect maybe one, maybe two, but three just seems to be a little bit excessive, but you know, at the end of the day, that's what they wanted to include. The other thing that you've got here is a user guide, so obviously it will tell you how to make adjustments to the actual case and just sort of general bits of information. So obviously make sure you give that a good read. Let's have a look inside this particular bag. Okay, so in here we have a nice bundle of cable ties. So if you did need to cable ties, you know, cables down, you are able to do that. We have got a little device here that obviously you put onto your motherboard standoffs to help to screw it in, and we've got various bags of different black case screws, as you would come to expect. You know, obviously one's there for 3.5-inch drive, one there for your motherboard standoffs, and then you have got some anti-vibration pads for your power supply unit as well. Okay, so the first area that I'm going to cover is the hard drives and also the optical bay. Now, as you can see down here, we have got three hard drive caddies. They're plastic, they're reasonably quite flexible, to be fair. You are able to install a 2.5-inch drive into this, as well as obviously your 3.5-inch drive as well. So obviously you just literally slide them in place. Done this already with one of my hard drives, so obviously it's just screwed in. Just see if I can lift this up to show you guys. Let's just pull that out a moment. So right down at the bottom, also we have got a PCB down there. So you are basically connecting your starter cable and power cable to the back of the PCB, and obviously when you're sliding the drives actually in, obviously then they're connected to that. So it does mean that they're very versatile, they're very hot swappable as such. So that's quite a good plus point, to be fair. So let's now just pop that back in, and when you're putting it back in, you got quite a confident click as you're pushing it back in to obviously let you know that it's been inserted okay. So the next thing is the 5.25-inch bays up at the top here. Again, there are three of them. Not quite sure as to why you need three, but they are there. So it's just a case of sliding the actual drive into place. You will need to screw this down. There's no sort of quick release or anything of that nature, which would be quite nice to see. I assume you're probably able to put some form of fan controller or something like nature in at the top here as well, which, you know, could be of benefit to you depending on what you're trying to do. So we're trying to monitor the temperatures. This top panel, using a little sort of switch on the side here, which is right there. I'll move that back. Means that you are able to pull that top section completely off and completely away. And as you can hopefully see, there are, it's a bit loose, some routing options down there as well. Another thing that I've just noticed as well is that we do actually have a 120mm fan on the side here. So see, that's going to be blowing air by the looks of things across the actual hard drives to obviously keep them cool. The cables obviously feed through the back around to the actual back here, which is again pretty difficult to show you, to be fair, but that's the back of the actual PCB. In here obviously you have got your 3 SATA connectors, and you can see that we are powered here by 2 Molex connectors obviously for that. So and there are there's the power connector and fan connector, 3-pin connector for the actual fan itself. Okay, so moving on to the back of the case, I assume. Obviously we have got your Molex or 3-pin power connector for the front, what looks to be like a 200mm fan. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 PCI expansion slots that are vented. Obviously we've got the red theme. Obviously here would be where your I/O panel would go. You've also down here, if you can see that, got 4 holes for water cooling. There's a little bar around the back here, and that will enable you to screw an all-in-one, a radiator or something like that onto the back if you do want to use this for testing water cooling. So let's now move around to the front, and we can have a look and see what we actually have on the front of the actual case. So we have got a power button, a reset button, we have got 1 USB 3.0 and 3 USB 2.0 along with your microphone and headphone jack on there as well. We've got the Aerocool branding up at the top, and then obviously we've got this massive mesh area with this Aerocool fan on the inside. So it's just literally a case of lifting it straight up like that. Let me just adjust the camera so you can see that a bit better. So there are 3 options with the actual lid. You can have it fully open like we have here, you can have it completely closed, or by undoing this thumb screw here and moving this particular bar, you can then rest it on top like that. So you don't have to, obviously depending on the height of your cooler, for example, on the inside, it may be that you have to have the lid this way. Obviously with that pushing a lot of air downwards, that's going to produce a hell of a lot of cooling for the actual case itself. So let me put that back in. And what I'll do now, I'll bring you in a bit closer to actually look at the motherboard tray area. Okay, so this is the motherboard tray area. I'll just move that cable out of the way there. Also, you've got your front panel connectors. You've got your hard drive LED, your power switch, your front audio connection, your USB 3.0 internal header, all that good stuff in there as well. So I'll just move that to one side. As you can see, we've got standoffs pre-installed here. Obviously, if you are looking to install the larger motherboards, there are holes down here for you to install that. We've got a large cutout here for the CPU cooler, so if you did need to change that, it doesn't necessarily mean that you've got to undo, you know, all the screws in order to basically change the CPU cooler. We've also got a couple of rubber grommeted areas, a total of 3 of them, so cables are able to be pushed down underneath the case to sort of keep them out of the way. That actually does extend, if I show you underneath the actual case. Hopefully we can get a better idea of this. Just bear with me. So you can see here, these are the rubber grommeted areas. So with your front I/O ports, etc., you're probably able to sort of bring them down through one, back up through another, so they're sort of out of the way. While we're here, actually, one other thing that I do want to mention is obviously that we have got rubber feet on the actual case itself all the way around, which is really, really good indeed. So what I'm going to do now, I'm actually going to do a bit of an install into the actual case, so you can get a bit of an idea as to what it would look like if you were to be using the Aerocool Strike X Air. Okay, so now on to the installation of a PSU. Obviously I've got a Cougar 850 watt CMX PSU here, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to untangle the actual cable tie on this. First thing I'm going to do is just literally feed the cables all the way through the actual chassis, one by one, or in a group, whatever way they come, just so that they can all go through. That's that. So, obviously ensuring that you're pulling this through. You then, obviously you may more than likely going to want to connect up your SATA connectors, etc. before actually installing this, because obviously there's not a great deal of room in there, and I am struggling at the minute to get it to go in, to be fair. So I'm obviously doing something not quite right here. Now there we go, that's a bit better. Let's that go on the inside. Let's have a look. It's a bit tight, so it might actually go on the outside, or I could have it on the wrong way. So it looks like I've got that actually on the wrong way up for some bizarre reason. So let me just swap that around, and I'll come back and show you it connected. Okay, so now that I've sorted the actual back plate out for the PSU, I'll sit screwed on there. Essentially just pushing it in until it clicks into place. So it's there, it's quite sturdy, it's not going to go anywhere, and to remove it you just basically pull the clip on either side and out you come. One thing that I would definitely recommend is connect your cables up to the front SATA and also to the front of the PSU that you're going to need inside the case, so that you can route them through beforehand. Okay, so as you can see, I've got an install going on into the actual Striker X Air. This is quite an old board, it's a socket 775 board, but it's just one that I had lying around that obviously I can use just to show you guys what this case is like, obviously when it's powered on and installed. Now, as you can see, there's quite a bit of a mess with regards to the actual cables itself. In particular, the graphics card cable power cord was pretty difficult to actually route. I wanted to get everything basically underneath the actual motherboard tray itself. So to route it through underneath here, up through here, and obviously to that is quite tight, and probably a lot tighter than what I'd want. So essentially you're probably going to end up routing that through onto there, or obviously put an extension cable on. The 24 pin routed through fine. Obviously I've got quite a long reach on this particular PSU. Also I've got the three SATA connectors connected to the motherboard there. I've got the top 200mm fan, I think it's 200mm, looks probably a bit bigger actually. I'll have a look and double check. Connected onto the motherboard down here. The fan that is down on the inside there is obviously connected onto the actual board, as well as obviously the front panel connectors and the audio. I've not got USB 3.0 on here, so I basically just tucked that cable down out of the way. The additional motherboard power at the back here, again, there is actually a little hole. You can't really see it from there. There is actually a little hole down there to feed that through. Again, it's very, very difficult to actually feed that through the actual hole. Could do with being a lot bigger, to be honest with you. So I've had to route my cable right over the top here. I see I've got my Gameboard GPU, a spare GPU installed onto the actual case as well, so you can sort of get to see what it's like with quite a large graphics card installed. Just looking down in there, you can see obviously quite a mess of cables, really, to be fair. It's not the easiest thing to sort of cable manage, to be honest with you. Obviously because the hard drive bays need Molex power. Obviously you've then got the Molex connector in there, which, you know, is a bit of a pain, to be honest with you. There's really not much room down there at all. So let's give it a switch on. Okay, so you can see the Xeon CPU cooler there. kicking into life. And then we've got the top red LED Aerocool fan, and again there's another one down there. So let me just switch my lighting off a moment. See, they're not the brightest of lights, but you know, at the end of the day it's thrown a lot of air down. Now as I close the lid down like so, hopefully you can see, if I bring this around, that we're going to have a bit of issue with regards to, there we go, touching the top. So that's the main reason why you have got this prop stand here, which you can undo, lift up, stays in place, and then you can go down like that. So essentially that's what it's going to look like. And also you've got a massive amount of air coming down on top there. So it looks really good, to be fair. It's not the easiest of test benches to sort of deal with, to be honest with you, but essentially once the motherboard's in there, it's not that difficult to sort of swap the CPU cooler out, to change your graphics card, play around with your memory, change your optical and your hard drives are, you know, as you'd expect, to dawdle. So that's about it really, guys. Be interesting to find out what you guys think about this particular case. You know, obviously it's not your everyday case. It's not something that I'd recommend that you use on a day-to-day basis as your main case. A, the size of it, and B, the fact that obviously it's an open case, so the amount of dust that potentially is going to get inside the actual case is quite scary, actually, to be fair to you. But yeah, it'd be interesting to find out what you guys think about this particular test bench. Is it, you know, do you like the look of it? Does it seem to be practical? So leave any comments down below, and we look forward to seeing you in our next video.